Good evening, Maggie, and welcome to Religion, Politics, and the Culture. And I'm Dennis O'Donovan.
Well, hello, Dennis. Great to be with you tonight.
Well, thanks very much for being back with us. I was trying to figure out if this is your third time on the show or what, but anyway, you've always been a great guest, and I'm sure you will be again tonight, too, okay?
Hey, well, thank you.
Okay, Maggie, when I was doing my preparation for the show today, it's you're kind of a tough person to prepare for because you've got volumes of stuff on the internet, okay? But I think you really do. It's like you don't know which way to go. You don't know whether to talk about Maggie Gallagher or traditional marriage or the National Organization for Marriage or the Institute for Marriage and Public Policy, etc. But hopefully we'll touch upon all that tonight. So I'm going to start out with something really simple. Back in April of 2010, you spoke to a full house at Franciscan University of Steubenville on the future of marriage, why and how Christians must engage the same-sex marriage debate. So I guess I'll just ask you, Mary, why and how must Christians engage the same-sex marriage debate?
Well, what a great question. I think there are two great things at stake in the marriage debate, and they both go to the heart of what Christians have believed, not only in this country, but across the globe and for thousands of years. The first is the nature of marriage itself. Marriage is the union of husband and wife for a reason. These are the only unions that can make new life and connect those children in love to their mother and father. And so for the government to step in and instead of supporting marriage, to take it upon itself to redefine its core meaning so that it's now a union of any two people, it's cut off from its roots in the natural family, and it's a profound problem for marriage in our society, and it's a kind of political imposition by the government on a natural social institution that government did not create and probably cannot sustain without the help of civil society and religious communities. What happens when the government steps in and says, no, from now on marriage has nothing to do with mothers and fathers together. In fact, that old idea of marriage is now discarded. It's discredited bigotry. It's exactly like someone who believes that people of two different races can't get married. Well, when the government says that, it's going to have consequences for a lot of people. And I got involved in this fight because I think it goes to the heart of the kind of underlying issues at the core of the marriage debate we've been having for years about, whether or not we're happy with a society and a culture where so many of our children grow up without the care and attention of both their mother and their father. If we really had our eyes focused on that problem, we wouldn't say, hey, in order to accommodate what is a tiny minority of a minority, which is the number of gay people who actually would like to enter a civil gay marriage, we're just going to cut marriage off from its roots and redefine our older understanding of marriage as if it were now a form of racism. It's a really bad idea to do that kind of experiment at this time. The second thing at stake in the marriage debate is actually the future place of Christianity and other traditional faith communities in the public square. Gay marriage not only redefines marriage, it redefines the relationship between the Christian tradition and the American project. What do I mean by that? The heart of the gay marriage idea is that there's no difference between same-sex and opposite-sex unions. And if you see a difference, there's something wrong with you. You're like a bigot who's opposed to interracial marriage. And we're already seeing the consequences of that idea once it gets into the law, once the government adopts it. We're seeing Christian adoption agencies driven from the public square. We're seeing Christian marriage counselors who are being kicked out of graduate school programs because they're unwilling to personally counsel gay couples and how to sustain their relationships. We're seeing Christian physicians who do not want to personally create a fatherless child being told they have to choose between their religious convictions and moral convictions and their jobs in Great Britain. I'm actually about to hop on a plane and go to London and interview a woman and her husband who were actually told they were unfit to foster or adopt children in Great Britain because they're unwilling to tell children that they think gay relationships are an act of good. So we're reaching an extraordinary point where for the first time in the history of our country to believe in the truth of Genesis, which were actually repeated by Jesus, now make you the equivalent of a member of the Ku Klux Klan. It's insane and it's irrational, but it is where we are headed if we don't step up to the plate and explain what we care about and why.
Okay, folks, tonight we're talking with Maggie Gallagher, and in addition to serving as chairman of the board of the National Organization for Marriage, Maggie Gallagher is also president of the Institute for Marriage and Public Policy, a nonprofit organization whose unique mission is research and public education on ways that law and public policy can strengthen marriage as a social institution. And those are two great websites, the National Organization for Marriage and the Institute for Marriage and Public Policy, and we'll get into those website addresses and, at the end of this interview. Okay, Maggie? We'll tell everybody how to find them and all. Maggie, this whole gay marriage thing is a little bit confusing in a way if you're just kind of a casual observer of the whole debate. You might think that, gee whiz, nowhere when it's gone before a popular vote has gay marriage been enacted into law. It's been defeated every time when the voters go out there to decide the issue. But at the same time, you hear so many people say that gay marriage is inevitable. So what's the answer? Is it just about all snuffed out? Is it just about history, the whole movement, or is gay marriage inevitable?
Well, neither of those things are true. I mean, it's extraordinary. The future hasn't happened yet. That's why we call it the future. And there's a reason why you're hearing over and over again that there's no, it's like the Borg, resistance is futile. It's because they have stopped persuading Americans that gay marriage is a good idea. So now the message that's being endlessly retailed is that you should just give up and think about something else. And what we are finding is that we just keep, I'm always puzzled, particularly when Christians or Catholics say to me, well, it's inevitable. And I'm like, well, I don't know, maybe in the future, but right now I just keep winning. With the National Organization for Marriage, we got Prop 8 on the ballot. They said that was impossible and that we would lose. That didn't turn out to be true. Those are the people who agreed with me, by the way, who were telling me that. Uh-huh. Then they said, well, in Maine, the blue state, we are certainly going to win this. Gay marriage is certainly inevitable, and we showed that's not true. Then we blocked gay marriage bills in New York and New Jersey. Again, we were told it was a done deal, impossible to stop. That didn't turn out to be true. Then we helped the people of Iowa unelect 3 judges. We committed substantial, I think about $600,000 to a media campaign to remind them of what these judges did. And then for the first time in Iowa's history, they kicked all 3 judges off the bench in their elections. And the people of New Hampshire also repudiated the party in power, which had passed gay marriage without a vote of the people. And so far this year, we've blocked gay marriage in Rhode Island and Maryland, 2 of the bluest states in the country, because of an incredible public outpouring of opposition. And I hope we'll be able to do the same, but we've done the same in New York by the end of this session, which is June 20th. And we helped pass a marriage amendment in Minnesota, another kind of blue state, and it will go to the people of Minnesota. So what we're seeing is that the polls are now shifting depending on, they've become very sensitive to how you ask the question. And I think people are very reluctant, understandably. They don't want to appear anti-gay. But if you really ask them in their hearts, do they think marriage is the union of husband and wife? They say, yeah, that's right, that's true.
Okay, now, Maggie, you wrote a lot of great articles here, and I'm going to post the links to a lot of them on my Facebook page. And my Facebook page is a little unusual. We've got like 3,200 Facebook friends, but they're people believe it or not, literally all over the world, in Ho Chi Minh City, you name it. And people are calling in to talk to you, Maggie, but if you don't mind, I'm just going to deal with you personally tonight, if that's okay with you. Is that all right?
It's up to you. But anyone out there, I'd be happy to talk to you maybe next time.
Yeah, let's do it next time, okay? Because, we've
good.
got a half hour with you, and but so anybody that's calling in, I'm sorry. Anyway, one of the articles that you wrote, Maggie, dealing with this question as to is gay marriage inevitable, I'm going to quote something that you wrote. You said that I was told as a teenager that nobody would be pro-life once all the old folks died off, and that no mothers would be home with children. I was told communism, or at least socialism, was inevitable too. Have you looked at the Soviet Union lately? So you go on to say that war is not about killing your enemies, it's about crushing your enemies. Will to fight? Guess what?
Yeah.
Culture war is too. So you kind of point out that a lot of things that society thought was going to be inevitable did not come to pass, and I like it when you talk like that.
Well, this is the progressive movement, which let me put it this way: progressives who do not have a religious foundation, the inevitability of the future is a substitute for God. It's the idea that we know what's going to happen in the future, that history has an arc. It made sense for Reverend Martin Luther King to say that because he believed that in the end, the universe is governed by a just and merciful God. But in my experience, this rhetoric of inevitability is a replacement for a lot of people these days for the idea that there is an overarching purpose to the universe and a direction in which we're all headed. So, I take from my faith, not everyone who agrees with me shares my faith, but one of the things I do take from it is that we know who wins this in the end. It's an encouraging and hopeful thought that what we're called to do is to stand up for what's true and what's right, in love and increasingly speak truth to power, Dennis, to this movement, which is pretty powerful group of people at this point.
Okay, now Maggie, you wrote a piece that's partially titled "What's going to be my next question?" Okay, here's the next question, a portion of a title to a piece that you wrote, and it's if marriage is natural, why is defending it so hard?
Yeah, I did that piece for Ave Maria Law School, and its attempt to reflect many things that the Catholic Church in particular teaches about sex, marriage, and family life were uncontroversial for literally hundreds of years, and now in certain sectors are, considered impossible to defend, culminating with the idea that, to make a marriage you need a husband and a wife who are able to be mothers and fathers to any children that they have together. That idea itself is considered ludicrous in some circles, although, of course, it has deep roots in common sense as well as in our faith tradition. And I think that we live in a society that has fairly consistently attempted to downgrade our awareness of the importance of fertility and intergenerativity. That these, 500 years ago, let me put it this way, government and the market have taken over a lot of functions of the family. And both the government and the market operate on a different set of core principles in the family. And so I think the habits of thought, the institutional ways of living that the other big dominant and powerful institutions tend to create and perpetuate are in some deep sense antithetical to what marriage and family means and requires. I don't know if that's too highfalutin a way to say that. There are lots of reasons why it's difficult to live a good life and to advocate for a good life in a culture of distraction. But I think maybe those are some of the deep deep reasons. You know, we don't get a president by having two presidents get married and producing the next generation of presidents. We don't have the president of General Motors reproducing in that way either. Mostly we found alternate ways to structure society, and it becomes surprisingly easy in a mass culture for people to lose sight of the fact that unless you bring together male and female to marry and raise their children together, eventually the future will not happen. And that's what we're seeing all over, particularly in Europe, a sudden collapse in the ability of a civilization to get enough young people to get married and raise their children together to even replace the population. And I do think that if you look at what's happening, it really deeply calls into question whether it's sustainable.
Okay, Maggie, as the father of three children, I think I can answer this one myself, but I want to hear the answer come from the expert. What do you say to people who say that gay couples can be, fine parents also?
Well, I was a single mother for many years, and I would give the same answer that I would give to that. It's certainly possible for people in a variety of situations to work hard and be responsible parents. But a mother cannot be a father for a child, and a father certainly cannot be a mother for a child. And there is a loss when the child's mother and father don't come together to raise the child, and children experience it. There's a lot of evidence for this. It doesn't mean their lives are necessarily ruined forever. We know lots of children who are raised in outside of loving, intact marriages who've managed to become good people and wonderful citizens. But it's a lot harder for them through no fault of their own. And my problem with gay marriage is not so much, the number of children who are being raised by same-sex couples is infinitesimal. It's less than 0.5% of all children. And for years, I focused on divorce and unmarried childbearing precisely because the bulk of children in fatherless households are being created through acts of sexual passion by people attracted to the opposite sex. But what's happening with gay marriage is that it's not about what the individual couple or person does. It's about what government is going to insist in public for all of us. So it's the meaning of marriage itself is going to be changed. And the core ideas that we should be paying more attention to, which is how do we integrate sex, love, babies, marriage, and mothers and fathers into a coherent family system that works most of the time, if not all the time. Instead, we'll be adopting as our official position that we don't care whether children are fatherless or motherless. We've gotten over that old hang-up that there's something important about the natural family. And we will, I got into the gay marriage fight for a very simple reason. I was deeply concerned about family dissolution. And in 2003, when I first thought about gay marriage seriously because it was coming to Massachusetts, I said, what I've been doing is going around the country saying marriage really matters because kids need a mom and a dad. And I said, if we move to gay marriage, I don't think I can do that any longer. I might be legally allowed to do it, but it will become obvious. People will say, no, wait, that's not what marriage is about, because two men are a marriage too, so marriage has nothing to do with getting mothers and fathers for children. And so the very set of ideas we need to be strengthening and reinforcing, we will be abandoning. Marriage is a celebration of adult romantic love is doing fine. Marriage is a way of creating a tie so firm between mothers and fathers that a child's heart can rely on it. No, that's what's in trouble in this country, and gay marriage is the end of the set of ideas we need to be strengthening in the public square.
Okay, we're talking with Maggie Gallagher, and in addition to serving as chairman of the board of the National Organization for Marriage, Maggie Gallagher is also president of the Institute for Marriage and Public Policy, a nonprofit organization whose unique mission is research and public education on ways that law and public policy can strengthen marriage as a social institution. Now, Maggie, I think we all get in debate with people, whether it's our family, friends, neighbors, coworkers, whatever, dealing with this issue of gay marriage. So my question to you, Maggie, is what's the absolute best, most succinct thing to say in these debates regarding gay marriage, assuming we're opposed to it? What's the best, most succinct thing to say, and what is it that we definitely do not want to say?
Well, I think the most important thing to do is to speak up briefly and clearly, and if you don't want to get drawn into a fight, you don't have to, but just say, this is what I would say. I would say I think marriage is the union of husband and wife for a reason. These unions make new life, and they connect children to their mother and father. And other kinds of unions, whatever they do, can't do that. So it's a bad idea for the government to step in and change the definition of marriage. The one-liner, I will tell you, that tests well, that I find less satisfying, is the idea that gays and lesbians have a right to live as they choose, but none of us have a right to redefine marriage.
Okay, all right, that sounds good to me. And the line when we're talking to people that might be kind of searching for the right answer or whatever, or maybe even on the opposite side of the issue, what's the one line that we might want to stay away from in a debate at all cost?
Well, I don't like the phrase ban same-sex marriage because I think it's not true. And it also suggests that in respecting and protecting the historic understanding of marriage, we're doing something that is pointed at hurting gay people. So I always take the trouble of saying that we want to support and protect laws that define marriage as the union of husband and wife. And it's certainly true that if you test the language, ban same-sex marriage, that it produces probably a 10-point drop in public support. It also misleads people because when people go into the voting booth and they say marriage is the union of one man and one woman, they vote yes. The ban language implies that we're, to some people at least, that we're criminalizing as opposed to simply refusing to change our public and government's understanding of marriage. Our point of view is not that gay marriage should be banned, but that same-sex unions are not marriages, and therefore there's no reason to treat them that way, even though there may be some other legitimate social needs like hospital visitation, etc., that we might want to extend. If you choose not to get married because a relationship with a member of the opposite sex is not appropriate for you, that's fine. It's a free country, but that doesn't mean that everyone else has to view your relationship as a marriage or it's unfair.
Okay, now, Maggie, I think a lot of people know the benefits of a traditional marriage, and I'm going to go over all that stuff in the last half hour of the show because you're only with us, I guess, for the first half hour. But while you're here, how would you respond to somebody who says that to defend traditional marriage and say that, the having two homosexual men get married is not a marriage, is similar to the old laws that used to ban interracial marriage?
I think it's a huge category error. I actually think gay marriage is more like bans on interracial marriage in that it involves the government or politics stepping in and changing a natural institution for political purposes. Now, I do understand the motivations behind gay marriage are quite different from the bans on interracial marriage. Everyone always knew that a black man and a white woman could make a marriage. That's why it had to be banned, and it was banned for one reason only, in order to keep the two races separate, so you did not produce legally mixed-race children, so that in order to serve the purposes of racially segregated laws, which were evil. So here's the big, simple way to put it. I mean, laws against interracial marriage were bad because they had the purpose of keeping the races separate so that one race could oppress the other. Marriage is good because it involves bringing together the two great halves of humanity, male and female, in part so that children can know and be known by and love and be loved by their mother and father, and that's good. So that's the ground on which we really need to stand. This vision of marriage is good. It's not just a product of theology. It has deep roots and resonance in human nature. And to say that these other relationships are not marriages is to say something that's just true and common sense and also good for our society.
Okay, Maggie, I want to give you some time to tell us about your websites or any upcoming things you got going on or books you've written or, how people can donate money to your organization if they feel moved to do so. So I'm just going to mention 3 things here, and you pick any one you want to talk about for maybe 60 seconds or less. Like, here's the 3 things. One question might be, is polygamy next if we have gay marriage? Another question might be, what would happen to our Catholic organizations if we had gay marriage? And another question might be, what will public schools teach if we have gay marriage? Pick any one of the 3 that you want to talk about.
Well, I think I answered what happens to our Catholic institutions.
Okay.
It's Jimmy too. It's second-class status, and it's going to affect a lot of people. I don't know if polygamy will be next. You'd have to ask the Harvard faculty. They will work it out and then let us know whether our views on polygamy are similarly bigoted. In terms of public schools, gay marriage is going to have big consequences. Your children and grandchildren will be taught with your tax dollars that our views of marriage are discredited bigotry. It's already happening. I mean, we're seeing extraordinary things entering the schools. A school in Oakland just taught kindergartners that there are multiple genders, right? That there is not just male and female. There's all kinds of different genders, and everyone has a human right to switch them. So we need to take a stand on this, and when we take a stand, what we find is we almost never lose. So I would say the other reason for joining us at the National Organization for Marriage to fight for marriage is that it's fun to win, especially when everyone tells you it's impossible, and then you just keep doing it anyway. Praise God.
Okay, now, Maggie, I've got information here about the National Organization for Marriage and also about IMAP, the Institute for Marriage and Public Policy. Do you want me to read a couple of these blurbs here for the benefit of everybody, or do you want me to do that later?
Well, I would really urge people if they want. The IMAP site is a think tank, and there's some good resources there in terms of arguments and information. But we founded the National Organization for Marriage almost 4 years ago now to build a place where people can come together in love and fight for what's right about marriage. And we're having an incredible impact. It's an activist grassroots organization that works with people of all faiths. But we work with a number of Catholic bishops. In particular, the leadership is Catholic. And if you want to make a difference, not only where you live, but for this great country of ours, to protect marriage and to protect the place of Christianity in the American tradition, come and join us. We need you. We need your emails. We need your prayers. If God is calling you to help us with your treasure, we need that too. So thanks for giving me that chance. Okay,
I'm going to put the links to those 2 websites on my Facebook page. But just to kind of, try to put a little bit of a fine point on this, the National Organization for Marriage and the Institute for let's see, was it again? The Institute for Marriage and Public Policy. You're up against some really heavy hitters. You got some major players that donate millions of dollars to try to have gay marriage enacted into law. So obviously, to combat that, Maggie, you've got to raise some money too, I would imagine. How can people donate to your side of the issue? I would go to nationformarriage.org. It's all spelled out, nationformarriage.org, and sign up for our weekly email and hear what the mainstream media probably isn't going to tell you about all the encouraging news, and consider whether or not you want to help us continue to win victories for marriage, for God's truth about marriage. Okay, Maggie Gallagher, Chairman of the Board of the National Organization for Marriage and President of the Institute for Marriage and Public Policy, want to thank you very much for being our guest tonight on the show. We would love to have you for the whole hour, but I know when you say 30 minutes, you mean 30 minutes. So, but you're always a great guest. This is like the fastest half hour in radio for me when you're on. I'm not kidding. I talk a lot. Thank you so much. No, if you saw my desk here, I've got papers scattered all over. I got about a week's worth of shows left, thanks to you. But anyway, Maggie, thanks very much for being with us tonight. I really appreciate it, okay? Thank you so much, and God bless you. All right, thanks a lot. Maggie Gallagher, thank you very much.